So it looks like Forspoken is going to be the very first game to take advantage of Microsoft's Direct Storage API that improves loading times. Let's look into this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I would like to talk about Direct Storage API. I'm sure you've heard about it already. I spoke about this particular technology so many times before, so I'm sure you've heard about it. But today I want to focus on this tech and the very first game that will actually take advantage of it, at least to a degree. Now, the very first game to take advantage of this tech is apparently Forspoken. Now this is a new game by Square Enix and it's coming out this month, like 24th if I'm not mistaken, and it's coming to PlayStation and PC. Okay, so it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, so obviously this technology will not be used on PlayStation, but it will be used on PC and hopefully Xbox, if that game actually comes to Xbox, after a while. That happened before with many games before. I think Forspoken is like 2 years timed exclusive for PlayStation when it comes to consoles. But anyway, let's focus on what developers actually said about this technology on PC. And this is actually as far as I know, the very first game to really take advantage of it. Now, there may be some other games that are using or developers that are planning to use direct storage, but I'm talking about the very first game that we will actually be able to play very soon, right? So Forspoken, Square Enix actually made this presentation a while ago, actually, where they actually spoke about the use of direct storage in their game, and they basically confirmed that it's a high-speed I/O API compatible with Windows 10 and 11, specifically optimized for Windows 11, effectively manages small files as well, incredibly fast NVMe M2 SSD up to 5 gigabytes per second. Many titles do not fully utilize its capability. Well, many titles, I would say, not a single title utilizes its capabilities right now, unfortunately. Not a single game that has been shipped, let me say this, like that. Which obviously, there's a lot of CPU bottleneck issues. Most games have loading times of 10 seconds and more. Our game title, Forspoken, so the game that is shipping very soon, supports direct storage, so that's fantastic, and the loading time is only 1 second. And after that presentation, they also shown us this particular slide. There's actually a kind of cool video on internet where they actually show quite a lot of new technologies that they will be using in that game. By the way, this game is being built on Luminous engine, so that's Square Enix engine. Because I know there's been quite a lot of talk about like Unreal Engine 5 and how next gen it is and stuff, right? Luminous is kind of like a next gen engine as well, and obviously they're still building it and stuff. I'm not sure, but I think that the very same engine is being used for Final Fantasy 16. So if Final Fantasy 16 ever comes to PC, and I'm sure it will, it's probably going to be using same technologies and stuff, right? So in this particular slide, you can see what sort of how fast this game loads with direct storage and on M2 SSD, right? Now, obviously, there's also some data for SATA SSD, which is quite fast anyway, and SATA SSDs are much slower because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it may depend on the actual SSD as well, but I think SATA SSD offers speeds up to 500 megabytes per second, while obviously NVMe's SSD, the faster ones, can go up to like 7 gigabytes right now, maybe even faster now, who knows, right? And obviously direct storage, even on a standard hard drive, it's like 21 seconds, which is faster anyway. But the problem with a hard drive is that direct storage can access multiple files at the same time, right? And start downloading them like simultaneously. While unfortunately on hard drive, mechanical hard drive, that's not really possible because, you know, everything is serialized. Like, yes, I think there's a couple of heads which kind of read data of the disks, because in the in a mechanical drive, you've got like couple of disks spinning and there's a couple of heads. So I guess you can access couple of the number of these disks simultaneously if the data happens to be on a different disks, right? Magnetic disk basically in the hard drive. I mean, I'm not going to go into details how mechanical drives are built, but anyway, you know, the fact of the matter is that like on mechanical drive, you cannot access, so many files at the same time. It's just like physically not possible, right? And while on the SSDs, that's possible because it's built different. The only thing about SATA SSDs that like SATA is still using that slower, port, right? While NVMe is much faster, so it's all about bandwidth and transferring data from the actual drive to the actual GPU memory. That's why NVMe SSD is so much faster, right? So listen, at the end of the day, that technology is kind of cool. As you can see, that is a huge difference. Now, the thing about direct storage is that the faster your drive is, the better. Obviously, you can see the quite a big difference anyway. 100% really when it comes to SATA SSD and M2 SSD. Now, I'm not really sure what sort of speed they use for this particular test, but the difference is still that like 2 seconds is like 1, 2. Done, game is loaded. It's super fast, right? So, by the way, they only talk about one part of direct storage API. So if you actually read about it, they only talk about accessing files, right? Now, I think the bigger thing about direct storage is the actual texture decompression on the GPU. Now, they don't really talk much about it. And by the way, when that presentation was made a couple of months ago, the texture decompression on the GPU was not possible yet. I mean, Microsoft did not support it in the API just yet, right? Now that has changed like a month, maybe 2 months ago. So I'm also hoping that whether that's going to happen, whether that would happen prior to game releasing or after, it would be cool to see if they also implemented the GPU texture decompression, because that could potentially have a massive performance boost on the CPU side of things. Because they talk about CPU bottleneck here, of course, but they still talk about the fact that the data needs to be basically transferred via CPU and that kind of stuff, right? So if they don't use GPU decompression, that all that data needs to go through CPU anyway. But at least they can access multiple data. But with the GPU texture decompression, things should be even much faster. So I would be curious to know if they are using GPU texture decompression in this game, or hopefully if they are actually planning to use it in the future, because that's really going to be the big game changer in my opinion. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, it's good to see that finally these technologies are being implemented in games. It's actually funny that Microsoft API is the first game that will actually take advantage of it is going to be really you know, kind of like a PlayStation, you know, game, and it's going to be PlayStation game on PlayStation, but it's still on PC. So hopefully, you know, it's good to see that at least somebody is using it, and hopefully with these next gen games, like current gen games, let's call them now, more and more developers will actually start using that technology, because this technology is very important, because it's all about data transfers, fast data transfers, and it's a cool way of avoiding bottlenecks, basically, right? It's cool to have all the power in the world and everything, but if you can actually you still need to, you know, feed the beast, right? I'm talking about the GPU, right? So the faster you can feed the beast, the faster you can feed GPU with data from SSD, from the storage, the better for the performance. And on top of that, that GPU decompression also takes away a lot of work from the CPU to GPU. So CPU can handle other tasks like, you know, draw calls and, you know, basically more frames and, you know, better physics and that kind of stuff, right? So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, guys, that's the video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for support. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to testing Forspoken and, you know, seeing how that technology works in practice. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.